Germany, 1944. The winter was biting, gray clouds pressing down on bombed-out streets as snow mixed with ash and dust. Inside a hastily abandoned field hospital, a young German nurse, barely 21, moved with careful precision among the wounded. She had learned quickly that in war, survival required more than skill. It required silence, compliance, and sometimes complicity. Yet nothing had prepared her for the moment that would follow, a moment that would redefine the boundaries between fear and humanity. 9 months earlier, she had been captured by advancing American forces and transported to a southern U.S. camp in Louisiana, where black soldiers guarded enemy prisoners of war. The indoctrination she had absorbed her entire life told her that these men were monsters, that if given a chance, they would execute prisoners without mercy. And yet, for 9 months, nothing of the sort had happened. Every day she saw discipline mixed with dignity, authority tempered with patience, and every day her fear quietly transformed into a fragile curiosity. It was late afternoon when she finally found herself face to face with Sergeant James Carter, a tall, composed black soldier with eyes that seemed to read the hidden corners of one's soul. The nurse's hands trembled as she carried a tray of medical supplies. Her uniform worn thin, her body tense from months of cold nights and limited food. Behind the barbed wire fences, the world seemed distant, a memory of smoke and fire, of cities reduced to rubble. Her voice, quiet and hesitant, broke the frozen air. We were taught you'd kill us," she confessed, almost in disbelief, almost to herself. Sergeant Carter studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable yet calm. And then, with a subtle nod, he broke the silence. "We take care of people here," he said simply, "whether friend or enemy. That's our duty." Those words, ordinary in their delivery but extraordinary in impact, caused her breath to catch. For the first time in her life, she realized that the world might not be as black and white as she had been taught. Days turned into weeks, and the nurse began to witness a quiet revolution within herself. The black soldiers, many of whom had faced prejudice at home, treated the prisoners with a discipline that was humane, fair, and sometimes unexpectedly compassionate. Wounded prisoners received careful care, and those suffering from exhaustion or fear were met with patience rather than cruelty. She watched, learned, and gradually began to shed the armor of fear and indoctrination that had protected her mind through the horrors of war. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the dense Louisiana pine, the nurse approached Sergeant Carter again. This time, she carried a bundle of letters, handwritten by prisoners, expressing gratitude, hope, and sometimes guilt for their roles in the conflict. Her eyes filled with tears, she handed the letters to him. I don't know if this will make any difference," she whispered. Yet in that moment, she had crossed a threshold. The fear she had clung to for months was replaced by understanding, and a tentative trust began to form between captor and captive, enemy and human being. The camp itself became a theater for these small, transformative acts. Prisoners helped each other with daily tasks, shared their meager rations, and quietly recounted stories of homes destroyed by bombing or hunger. And Sergeant Carter, aware of the nurse's fragile position, encouraged her to observe, to document, and eventually to take small leadership roles in caring for the sick. Behind these walls, a secret of resilience and compassion emerged. The understanding that humanity could survive even amidst war, darkest machinery. But fear was never fully absent. Every day brought reminders of the larger war, the losses that had defined Europe, the propaganda that had shaped every childhood. And yet the nurse found herself repeatedly confronted by moments of extraordinary empathy. When a fellow prisoner fainted from exhaustion, she saw Sergeant Carter kneel beside him, providing water and reassurance. When a small argument erupted over rations, she observed calm intervention rather than punishment. Gradually, she began to reflect. What she had been taught about enemies, about race, about power, was incomplete, and sometimes it was profoundly wrong. It was during one long winter night, as the camp settled into an uneasy silence, that the nurse made her most significant admission. Sitting by a dim lantern, she finally voiced the truth she had carried for months. "I thought you would hate us. I thought you would kill us if you could." Her voice cracked, trembling with fear, relief, and disbelief. Sergeant Carter's hand rested lightly on hers, a gesture of reassurance and quiet authority. "We are all human," he replied. "That is the lesson we must carry, even in war." The nurse, feeling the weight of her indoctrination lift, began to weep. For the first time, she allowed herself to grieve not only the war, but also the years of fear that had shaped her life. In the months that followed, the nurse worked alongside Sergeant Carter and the other soldiers, tending to the sick, organizing medical supplies, and quietly teaching hygiene and care. The prisoners, sensing her sincerity and bravery, began to confide in her. Some shared stories of loss, others of guilt and shame, and through these acts, a fragile but undeniable bridge of trust formed, spanning nationality, race, and ideology. She had arrived as a terrified girl, indoctrinated and afraid, and she left as a witness to humanity in its most defiant form. When the war finally ended, the nurse would recount her experiences to historians, documenting not the battles or strategies, but the small, human moments that defined the heart of conflict. She spoke of black soldiers who acted with discipline and kindness, of fellow prisoners who learned empathy, of the fragile courage required to bridge the chasm between enemies. Her story became a testament to the truth that even in the shadow of total war, the human heart could find space to forgive, to heal, and to hope. And so, in Louisiana, 9 months after her arrival, the German nurse's confession to Sergeant Carter was not merely a statement of fear, it was an acknowledgement of transformation. From indoctrination to understanding, from fear to courage, from enemy to human, her journey embodied the quiet heroism that often goes unnoticed in history books. Amid barbed wire, snow, and the echo of distant battles, a young woman discovered a profound truth, that even in war, humanity can endure, and compassion can triumph over fear.